Okay, Bible and Daily Lifers, we are going through the Bible at breakneck speed, starting to get breakneck. You'll see that as we go through it today. We are in the book of Numbers. We started early in the year, the beginning of the year, and we've been moving along, and we are in the book of Numbers, which means that we've done Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus. And we said Leviticus was going to be hard, and it was hard, but we made it through. And so now we are in the book of Numbers. So I don't know if maybe you could guess what the book of Numbers is about. What do you think the book of Numbers is about? Yes, it is. It's about numbers. But there are other books in the Bible that have more numbers than this particular book. But right now we are in Numbers. And the reason that it's called Numbers is because at the beginning of the book and at the end of the book, there's numbers. Numbers of who? Numbers of the tribes of Israel. So let's recount the story. So the book of Genesis, in the beginning, God creates the heavens and the earth. In Genesis 1:26, he creates human beings in his image. Chapter 3 of Genesis, humans fall away from him, and it ruins everything. It ruins the creation. It ruins our minds. It ruins our relationship with God. It ruins our body. It ruins our eternity. It ruins everything. We rebel against God. God kicks him out of the garden, and it begins this whole saga of the world beginning to unravel and fall apart, the creation itself, as well as human beings. We get to chapter 12, and God chooses this guy, Abraham, from Mesopotamia, and he makes some promises that he's going to make his name great. He's going to give him the land. He's going to give him the promise of those who bless you, I'll bless, and those who curse you, I'll curse, and that all the nations of the earth will be blessed through you. And all of those things came to pass because God had said them. In Abraham's family, he was an old man when he had a child. His family grows to 70 people. There's a famine in the land. They go down into Egypt to avoid the famine. They end up staying there for 400 years. Now, they had many, many years where they had great favor there with the pharaohs and with the leaders, because it was the family of Abraham, the son Joseph, who saved the nation through the famine and made them a great nation and made the pharaohs very, very rich, where they were owning all of the money and all of the land. And so they were in good favor for a while. And as they began to grow, Pharaoh, it says in the book that there arose a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph, and he became rather strict and enslaved them. And so they become slaves. They're there for 400 years. The book of Exodus, they cry out to God about their slave labor, and God delivers them, and he delivers them through Moses. And they come out really through the blood of the lamb. The innocent lamb dies for them. They put their faith in the blood of the innocent lamb, and it brings them into a new life. In the book of Exodus, they get to Mount Sinai, and it's there that God gives them the commandments, and then he gives them all of these other rules as well, these 614 rules that follow. And they are a nation that belongs to God. They're a sovereign nation. They are a theocracy with God as their king and as their ruler and as their constitution. They have no House of Representatives or presidents. They have God. And so God makes the rules. And so they're living underneath his rule and his reign. And now he's going to bring them into the land, because that's what he told Abraham. They would go into the land. And here they are, some 400 years later, they're going into the land. So the book of Numbers is about them coming out of Egypt and now going into the land. They're going into the promised land. And as they get ready to go into the promised land, what happens is they number the people. They number the people. They take a census. And this is the first census in the book. And this is why it's called Numbers. And it goes like this. These are the names of the men who came out. And then it goes on and it says, verse 20 in chapter 1, from the descendants of Reuben, from the firstborn of Israel, all the men 20 years old and more who are able to serve in the army were listed by name, one by one. according to the records of the clans and the families. Their number from the tribe of Reuben was 46,500. They numbered them one by one. So there's a census of all of those. And then it goes down and it says the descendants of Simeon, 59,300. From the descendants of Gad, 45,650. And so it goes on and it names all of them. And then chapter 2 of Numbers, it talks about them camping around the tabernacle and where they're going to be. Chapter 3 talks about the Levites, those priests that were going to be doing the serving in the tabernacle that would be there in the middle of the people. And we talked about that in Exodus, what the tabernacle was and what it represented. And so we get into chapters 4 and chapters 5, and it talks about some more people, and it talks about some of the Korahites, more of the priests. And then it talks about chapter 5, the purity in the camp, and some of the ways that they're supposed to be living. Chapter 6 has an interesting thing that will come up later in the Bible called the Nazirite vow. And this Nazirite vow was when somebody would be set apart, and there were certain things that they would do in order to set themselves apart. But keep that in mind, because we'll be coming back up to that in some future chapters and future books. The Nazirite vow. And then it gets into chapter 7, and it talks more about the tabernacle and the offerings in the tabernacle and the things that needed to be done in the tabernacle, and who is going to serve in that tabernacle, and who is going to bring all of the things that needed to be done in order to make the sacrifices and all of the things, and all of the tribes are participating in it. And you get that in the book of Numbers. So if you're reading this line by line, it gets this some tough reading here, and trying to get through. And chapter 8 talks more about that, talks more about the setting up of the lamps in the tabernacle. And we get to chapter 9, and they're reminded of the Passover. Why are they reminded of the Passover? Because they're supposed to celebrate that every single year, to remember what happened, how they came out of slavery through the blood of the Lamb. Chapter 11 talks about the fire from the Lord and the Lord coming down. And then chapter 13, you see they're moving now. They're on the move. And as they're on the move, what's happening is they're starting to complain. And so in these middle chapters here that we started here, where they're going to set out for Sinai, they're going to leave Sinai. I'm sorry, not set out, but they're going to leave Sinai. Chapter 10, verse 11, they're heading now to the promised land. And it's not a very long journey. They can make it there in several weeks, even if they're going slow. But it's going to take them 40 years. They're going to set out. And so chapter 10 is when they set out to go into the promised land, and all of the things that are going to happen in this 40-year period. What's going to happen is that when we get to the end of the book of Numbers, it's going to be 37 years later. And they are going to number the people again. And what we're going to find is when they number the people again, is that it's going to be a whole new generation of people. You see, the ones who came out are all now past. They don't make it into the promised land. And so there's a new generation born in the wilderness 40 years later, born in this journey, who now they are going to be numbered. So it's book and census, the book of Numbers. Those who are numbered when they leave to go into the land, and they journey for 40 years. And then at the end of the book, well, it's almost the end of the book, like chapter 26, and there's some more things that come after chapter 26. And we'll do a little bit more work in Numbers in the next one. But what happens is they're bookends. The numbers are on either end of the book. When they're getting ready to go out, they go through the wilderness, all kinds of stuff going on there. We'll talk about a lot of the stuff that went on in that 40-year journey, and we will do it in less than 10 minutes, a 40-year journey. And you think that's remarkable, right? But, when you hear a eulogy, eulogy is about 10, 20, 30 minutes, and that's, life that's 60 or 70 years. So we'll be able to do it. So the book ends, numbers and numbers. Let's move through. We're getting there. We're moving through the Bible, and we're moving through quick. 230 miles an hour on the bullet train. Hey, bless you guys. Love you. Let's continue.